We're live. Hi guys, welcome back to the Solo Club YouTube channel. I hope you're well. It's Friday. I'm really ready for the weekend, even though I'm going to be I will be working tomorrow. It's Saturday. I always work on Saturdays in fairness, but it's still Friday, which means it's a nice day. I hope you've had a lovely week. If you're joining me live, I can see people slowly coming in. Thank you for joining me live. It always amazes me that people do. And equally, if you're watching this in the future, hello, thank you for tuning in. Very quickly, if you're yet to check out the Substack newsletter, it's down below. Every Friday, I send out a bit of a it's always rambling. Everything I do is rambling, hopefully in a good way, but a rambling kind of behind the scenes look at this channel and the stuff that I do. So just double check that link below if you want to get on board with that. You can unsubscribe at any time as well if you want to. And also the Creator Academy is now live in terms of taking registrations. So again, if you have a look down below in the description, you'll see a little thing about that down there. A little thing, a link, you know what I mean? Again, it's been a very long week. Have a look at that, and have a look at the Creator Academy, which is something I'm very, very proud of already, even though it hasn't gone live yet. We're working very hard on that behind the scenes. It's something that's taking quite a long time to put together, but for very good reason. And but you can sign up for it now, and you can find out all about it by clicking that link below. Right, enough of the sales stuff, and on to today's topic. In fact, before we do that as well, as always, I'm not going to look at the chat until later because I don't want to be distracted, but I do want you to fill that chat with questions, please, guys. The reason I always make a big point of these questions and requesting them is because that is where these things come alive, in my humble opinion. I love the questions I get from you lot, and it just makes this all the more worthwhile and hopefully really interesting for people who watch it later on in the future. So stick all those questions in the chat and I'll come to them fairly soon. In terms, not sponsored by the way, I've just noticed funnily enough, I'm not even wearing a Garmin watch, so I'm definitely not sponsored. I'll turn it around though, just in case. What I want to talk about today relates to what happened on Wednesday this week. So it's been a very, very long week because of this. If you weren't aware, Google dropped their Pixel, not dropped, it's a bit of a, it's what the kids say, but they released their new Pixel phones this week, and the embargo for the reviews of those phones lifted on yesterday.
Sorry, I don't understand.
Sonos is talking.
Please use the Sonos app.
Sonos, stop. First time that's happened. It's normally the embargo, this is already going well. The embargo for these phones dropped on Thursday, yesterday. So there was a big run up to that and lots of stuff to do to get those reviews ready. And so that was one reason that this week has been absolutely crazy. The other reason is because I went to London on Wednesday to shoot a YouTube video. And I will not beat around the bush. It was a really miserable day towards the end. It was a great day to begin with, and I enjoyed the shooting, actually. I thought, as in the filming, I have to be so careful using that word. I really enjoyed the filming of the video, but then later on, things went downhill quite significantly. And I'm going to explain why, and there's quite a big lesson here for me and hopefully for you guys if you get into this. And also, it resulted in something much better the day after. So what happened, I went to London, and I'm testing out a new vlogging setup, and I'm fully aware that I'm testing out lots of vlogging setups. I seem to keep going between action cams and big cameras and all that sort of stuff. There is a reason for this, and I still, but for most, I'd say 90% of vlogging duties, I would recommend using an action cam like a DJI Osmo Action 3 or 4 or a GoPro, obviously, just because it's so convenient, so easy to use. But occasionally, I need more quality. I need a better focal length. I need a bit more depth in terms of the dynamic range and the zooming abilities and all that sort of stuff. And that's when I turn to a bigger camera. And like I've said previously, historically I've gone with the FX3, the Sony FX3, and a great big Video Mic Pro Plus mic on there, which is just a massive, expensive, heavy, annoying setup, and it's not exactly inconspicuous. So what I've done recently is get hold of a Sony ZV-E1, which is this. I'm going to take the lens off. I don't recommend doing this because Sony cameras don't cover the sensor when you do this, so I'll only do it briefly because it's not mine either. But I've got hold of a Sony ZV-E1, which is, as you can see, a full frame camera in a very, very tiny body, tiny little body. So I got that. I didn't use this lens, by the way. I used the lens that's on this camera at the moment. I always forget what it is. It's a 16 to 28 Sigma. So that paired with this and this, which is, if you can get it off, and if I can remember the name, which I can because the box is there, it's... Please, Sony, why are you doing this to me? Why isn't this coming off? There we go. This is the Sony ECM B10. Sony and their product names. Anyway, this is their miniature mic. So if I take the dead cat off, that's what the mic looks like, basically. And they're very highly regarded, these. There's a few different versions. This is the smaller version. It's the more compact version. And I got this, like I say, this and the ZV-E1 on loan from Sony just to give a try in terms of vlogging, because it's nice and small, it's full frame, and the mic isn't too... It's relatively inconspicuous. You can still tell I'm doing stuff, but it's not this great big thing that I'm walking around with. And the plan that I had with this setup... I'm laughing because I know what's coming. The plan that I had was to make it as plug and play and as point and shoot as possible. And to do that, I basically set pretty much everything on this camera to be auto. So auto ISO, a fixed aperture of f2.8, and I think I chose the S Cinetone color profile, which meant no messing about, no faffing about with color grading after shooting, no adding LUTs and all that sort of stuff. Literally, the idea was to take the memory card out of this camera that's not in there, but take the memory card out, put it into my computer, and either edit it myself straight away or give the footage to someone else to edit. Really straightforward. So that's what I did with the camera. With the mic, I looked on the back, and there are lots of different settings on here. Stuff like you can change the direction, so you can change it to pick up directly in front or from behind or all around, entirely what you want. So I had that set on the front setting, obviously, because it's just me talking to it. We've got audio level, nice and straightforward. What else is there? Attenuation, which is you can kind of add 10 or 20 dB of gain just to make things sound a bit louder in certain situations. And then there's a filter switch, which you can see hopefully here. And the filter switch has 3 settings: off, LC, which is low cut, so it cuts out the low rumble and wind, well, in theory, wind noise and that sort of stuff, and NC, which is noise cancelling, I think, which is intended, and this is what Sony say, they say it's intended to, it's a noise cut filter which effectively eliminates unwanted sounds by digital signal processing, which sounds really clever. And because I love Sony, and generally speaking, their camera gear and their audio gear is just fantastic, I read that and thought, perfect. I'm going to London. It's probably going to be a bit windy. It's going to be noisy in terms of tourists and stuff. NC, that sounds like the perfect setting. So I switched it to that and forgot about it. In fact, no, I did a bit of testing. This is where things start to go wrong, in this room, which doesn't have tourists or wind in it. And it sounded obviously fantastic. So I trundled off to London, safe in the knowledge that I had this fantastic new vlogging setup, and spent a day filming. And that, I think I've said before on these live streams, that form of filming, I know some people who watch these live streams and tune in quite regularly are experimenting with this kind of vlogging themselves. So if you've done this, you'll know what I mean. It's very intense and quite stressful. There's a lot of having to get over any insecurities that you might have about filming in public. You really have to raise your self-confidence levels to do that. So all this stuff's going on. And also you've got to remember what you're filming and remember your script and make sure you don't miss things and all that sort of stuff. So I love it, but it's very intense. And I spent pretty much from, I think it was about midday through to about 5 o'clock doing that filming. And I was really pleased with what I'd done, because I'd found landmarks, made sure there were landmarks in the background. I did one shot where I had the camera in a red telephone box, which is obviously very, very British, just sat in there on its own, and then made it look like I kind of walked into the phone box and talked to it, and then walked off, and then turned around and ran back and got the camera very quickly. Did all these really kind of interesting, or I thought were interesting shots. And I was absolutely knackered by the end of it because it's, like I say, it's a very intense day of filming. Found a pub, just have a Diet Coke. I wasn't going to drink and edit. That's not a good idea. Never recommend that. I've tried it. Found a pub to do some editing in, to kind of edit the footage that I'd captured. Loaded it all into the computer, put it into Final Cut Pro, and started editing it. And the first issue that I came across, noticed very quickly, was the audio. And to begin with, it was fine. And I think that was mainly because I was walking down quite a quiet street. But as soon as I got to some footage that had people in it in the background and wind noise and other stuff going on in the background, it was horrible. The audio was it wasn't completely lost. It just wasn't up to my standard. And audio is a big thing for me. I know how important audio is on YouTube. And for most of my adult life and most of my teenage years, I've been obsessed with audio. So if I hear bad audio made by yours truly, it's a bad thing. It's a really bad deal. And it's very hard to explain until you hear it. And you probably will hear this on the video that goes out. If you're interested, this video, it hasn't gone out yet, but it will be going out probably next week. It's a review of 4 Anker, who do the kind of charging stuff, Anker charging products. So if you look out for that one next week on Markerless Reviews, you'll probably spot what I mean. But the audio was just doing some very strange things. And it was reducing noise to a degree. But in doing that, it was doing weird things with the volume. So the volume was dipping in and out, and the dynamics, all of the body and the top end and everything basically was all over the place. The bottom end would disappear, the low frequencies, the top frequencies were muted, and there was this really odd kind of echoing going on as well, as though I was in an echo chamber or in a bathroom, even though I was walking through the streets of London. Horrible, basically. So that was the first issue I encountered. And the second issue, which was just as annoying, was the fact that the camera was overexposing. And I'm sure you know what that means, but basically it was just a very blown out image. So if there was sunlight behind me, or if there's a white sky behind me, it was really way too white, and there was just no detail anywhere. Not in every single shot, but in certain shots, it was just blown out, overexposed, and again, not up to my standards. So I'm sitting there in this pub at, what time was it? 5:30, 6 o'clock or something like that, looking at this stuff I'd shot and thinking, that's a day wasted. I've spent all this day and I haven't got time to reshoot it. And it needs to be this. I need to use this footage from London because the whole point is that I'm in London. It all kind of links in with the video, etc., etc. And I just felt really crap about it, to be honest. And I sat there eating some very expensive tacos, which weren't worth the money. And I just remember sitting there eating them and thinking, this isn't any fun. I feel like I've wasted the day. I've still got to put this video out in some shape or form, but I'm not proud of it. It's just, it's rubbish. And I was really annoyed, really annoyed, because there was no fixing it, really. We can do certain things in post-production, and there's a few things that myself and my general manager, Niall, who's a very good video editor and has some tools that he can try with it. There's a few things we can try, but it's not going to be up to my normal standard. And the video in particular can't be salvaged in terms of that detail and the lack of dynamic range because of all that overexposure. So 2 lessons. Firstly, the first lesson is test your gear properly, please. Before you go out, don't test it just in a very quiet room that's got sound deadening and stuff, because that ain't the best test. Take it out and use it. Second thing, don't set your camera to be completely auto if you care about the image quality, because it will overexpose things. I've found this before with not just Sony cameras, but most DSLR style video cameras, where if you set everything to auto, it tends to err on the side of overexposing rather than underexposing, which you can kind of understand why, because it wants to get your face nice and bright and visible. But the net result of that is that everything else is completely blown out. So that was the other thing. I'd even attached an ND filter to it, which was completely pointless. Thinking back, I don't know why I did that, but again, another lesson learned. And the other lesson was to do with the audio, to do with that switch. That evil NC switch there, which I don't know what Sony are playing at. It's terrible. Whatever that is doing, that digital signal processing is rubbish, I'm afraid. I should have set that to off. That's what it should have been on. If I'd set that to off, I'm pretty sure the audio would have been absolutely fine. But I didn't. I just rushed it and yeah. So my fault. I'm not blaming Sony for that at all, although that NC thing should be better. Although it's not a very expensive mic, to be fair, so I can't really complain. It was my fault, basically. And the other problem with that day on Wednesday was that I was going to a team building style event in the evening. Now, hands up, I agree to this. I wasn't being held at gunpoint and forced to go there. It was a brand type thing where I was invited and I said, "Oh, yes, please," because it's quite a big brand and it made sense to make some friends there. But it involved playing life-size Monopoly on the Tottenham Court Road, which I don't enjoy forced fun, basically, and I don't really enjoy team building events because no one wants to be there, including the people running the event. It's just never much fun. As it turned out, we had a bit of a laugh, and I did meet a couple of people who I needed to meet, so it was worth it. But I just remember sitting eating those tacos, which weren't great for 29 quid or whatever they were. I remember sitting there and just thinking, this has been a rubbish day. I'm not enjoying being a YouTuber at the moment. So another thing was I knew at the back of my mind that the review for this was due the next day. I needed to get the review of the Pixel 8 Pro onto YouTube by 3:00 the next day. And I'd filmed some B-roll, I'd filmed some test photos and that sort of stuff, but I hadn't shot a single second of A-roll. So I knew that I'd have to get up very early on the Friday morning after this, sorry, on the Thursday morning after that trip to London, and film the A-roll for that, edit it, get everything edited, and all that was playing on my mind as well. And yeah, it was just all I was adding all these things onto my head, thinking this is all horrible. I don't want to be a YouTuber anymore. Why am I doing this? I just want to go and do something I just want a holiday. I want to go to bed. Get to bed at a reasonable hour. Get up not too early and just do something else, basically. I was genuinely feeling like that. I'd never do that. I'd never jack all this in at all, but it was probably the worst day. And this all probably sounds really weird and really over the top and unnecessary when there are people out there with incredibly difficult jobs and critical jobs that people's lives depend on, and there are some horrible things going on in the world at the moment, which I'm not diminishing any of that stuff, obviously, but you'll know this. Occasionally, you just have bad days, and it's normally over stupid little things. So what happened the next day? I got home at midnight or something because of a late train, got 5 hours sleep or whatever it was, got up and then did all of that stuff for this Pixel 8 Pro video. And it was the most intense morning of shooting ever. Shooting and editing. I basically started from about 7 a.m. after I'd had a coffee and woken myself up to about 2:30 p.m. in the afternoon. And it was non-stop getting that video done, and it was a fairly tricky edit because there were lots of examples of of the camera system in there and examples of AI features and moving between angles and things, and it was quite tricky. And also I'd shot everything, so all the A-roll was shot on this, and what I didn't think about was the fact that I needed to get the footage off this into my Mac, and the only way to do that relatively quickly is to use Google Photos as the kind of conduit to get the footage from here onto the Mac. Problem with that is that these were quite big, very big 4K files. So I was waiting for them to upload to Google Drive or Google Photos and then process them and then download them and et cetera, et cetera. So that added another layer of complexity that I really didn't need yesterday morning. But you may remember that I said that when I went to London, I started off talking about this. And the reason I mentioned this at the start of this rambling conversation is that apart from that anchor video, I wanted to record one piece of footage with this phone in London. The reason being, on the if you're not aware, on the Pixel 8 Pro, there is a feature called Magic Audio Eraser, which is this AI thing where it can basically give you control over the individual audio components within a video. So if you shoot a video of yourself walking down a street and you've got car noises and people talking in the background and wind noise and yourself talking, the software on here will give you individual volume controls for those different elements. So you can bring down the volume of the wind, you can bring down the volume of the chatter in the background. If you're in a park somewhere, you can bring down or raise the volume of the nature sounds. It's really clever. It's not literally magic and it's not foolproof. It does some strange things occasionally, but it's very clever. But anyway, regardless of that, that's irrelevant. I wanted to test it in London. So as part of that day on Thursday, sorry, on Wednesday, I wanted to walk across London Bridge and talk into this and then use that footage to test that AI feature. I did that on the Wednesday and largely forgot about it really until I put it into the edit yesterday. And basically, I did all that stuff. I launched the video for the Pixel 8 Pro and it went off the charts. At the moment, as I speak, it's still a 1 out of 10. It's had nearly 30,000 views in just over 24 hours. It's brought in nearly 200 new subscribers. It's a really good video. It's gone really, really well. And the reason I'm mentioning this is because I spent that 1 minute, 50 seconds, 2 minutes tops on London Bridge, walking across that road with that camera, talking to it. And as it turns out, that was the most productive, or certainly the most satisfying part of that day, even though it was just 2 minutes. So even though the anchor video, which is completely salvageable and will be absolutely fine, if that completely tanks or there is a problem with it, that day in London wasn't wasted. And equally, I've learned so much about this camera setup because of the problems that I had with it, that again, that day wasn't wasted. And equally, that evening playing life-size Monopoly, apart from the Monopoly part of it, wasn't wasted because I made some very good brand connections there. So what is the moral of the story? I don't really, do I know what is the moral? The moral of the story is this is what it's like occasionally to be a YouTuber. And it's very much peaks and troughs of enjoyment and elation and real frustration. There's very little in the middle. Again, I've probably talked about this before on these live streams where it is literally a roller coaster. It's up and down. And there's not much you can do about it. It's just the nature of the beast. You're always chasing numbers, so you're chasing, views, subscribers, revenue, obviously. And when those numbers go up and go down, etc., it can be worrying. And equally, it can make you feel great, or it can make you feel pretty bad. And I did feel really bad on Wednesday. And looking back, it feels a bit silly and a bit daft, but I don't regret feeling bad because again, it's just hindsight. And again, it's how you learn. But the reason for doing these live streams and starting Solo Club in the first place was to give you an insight into this stuff. Because if I didn't do that, you would just see these videos appear on YouTube. So you'd see the Pixel 8 Pro review appear on YouTube yesterday. You'll see the Anchor video appear next week. And it would just be there. And okay, you might, if you've got eagle eyes, you may notice the issues with the Anchor video. But most people won't actually. Most people will just see that video and either get what they need from it or comment on it or troll it or whatever, but they won't have any idea of what happened behind the scenes, which is why I love sharing this stuff, particularly for people who want to do this stuff themselves. Because I used to watch videos like the videos that I'm talking about now as a non-YouTuber and just think, that looks like such good fun. And don't get me wrong, it is. But because this is a business and because things do go wrong and you rush things, and because this is a ridiculously busy period of the year, it's not as much fun as I probably thought it would be. I still wouldn't change it for the world, but you have to get real with this stuff. And it's very, very hard work, very hard work. And equally, there was no guarantee that Pixel Pro video was going to go off the charts. It may not have done. Thinking back 12 months with the Pixel 7 and Pixel 7 Pro, that video didn't do that well. So that was at the back of my mind as well. I was thinking, maybe it could, the same thing could happen tomorrow. It could be another bad day tomorrow because my Pixel 8 Pro review doesn't, it tanks. But it didn't tank. It did very well. But even that was a risk. So there you go. Is it a moral? There's no moral there, really. There's no moral of the story, really. It's just the fact that, it's peaks and troughs. It's a roller coaster, as Ronan Keating, life is a roller coaster, as Ronan Keating once said. I never thought I'd quote Ronan Keating on this live stream, but I have. There you go. It's Friday. Anyway, guys, cheers. It's over to you now for your questions. Lots of familiar faces. We're getting some good numbers on these streams now, which is fantastic. So thanks again for jumping on. Hi, Jakob. Hi, Richard. Hi, Mark, David, Johan, Kevin, still in Florida, still very jealous. The weather here, that we haven't talked about the weather yet. I'm British. The weather here is horrible, really horrible. It's unseasonably warm. Well, mild, not warm. It's about 21 degrees, which for us is pretty hot, actually. It's a massive lorry going past, sorry. But yeah, the weather is horrible. So I'm always very, very jealous of Kevin. Alan, Gavin, so many regular faces. I love it. But yeah, guys, have we got any questions? Let's have a look. Jakob's got a question about the academy from the looks of it. What are the plans with the alumni from the previous medium cohort in the new Creator Academy? You're a member for life, Jakob. So basically, any academy going forward, you're a full member of. So yeah, as promised, that hasn't changed. Although it's got a different name. So it was the Medium Academy. Now it's the Creator Academy. You've got full access to it. So yeah. You're not obliged to take part, obviously, but I know you will because you're very keen on this stuff. But yeah, you've as promised, you're a member for life. Malcolm. Oh, Malcolm, how you doing? Malcolm, have you been on this live stream before? I don't know if you have. Possibly not, but thank you for coming on, Malcolm. Very well, you definitely know. So Malcolm does something very similar to myself. I'll let Malcolm share what he does in the chat. But yeah, we've conversed several times on Twitter and elsewhere. And sorry, X. We have to call it. When do we stop calling it Twitter? It's really annoying. But yeah, Malcolm knows exactly what it's like. First time tuning in. Thank you, mate. I really appreciate that. Richard, I watched your review on the Pixel 8 Pro. Is the quality of the unit as good as the iPhone 15 and the Samsung S23/Fold 5? When you say quality, if you mean build quality, yeah, 100%. The iPhone 15 Pro Max is still a notch above everything. It's definitely the better made phone out of everything I've tried. But yeah, the quality of the Pixel 8 Pro is amazing. Alan, YouTube is a pain for running 2 channels, especially when uploading directly from DaVinci Resolve. Running 2 channels. What? Just out of interest, Alan, what do you mean by that? I'm quite curious about that because I'm running 2 channels. Obviously, I've got Solo Club and Mark Ellis Reviews, and the only challenge I have with that is with my own time. Really, it doesn't really relate to YouTube itself. From the sounds of it, do you upload directly to YouTube from DaVinci Resolve? If you do, that's fascinating because you don't do that. Well, you can do that in Final Cut Pro, but I don't do that. I basically export from Final Cut. I think most people do this. Export from Final Cut Pro to either an MP4 or a .mov file, and then upload that the normal way through YouTube Studio to YouTube. But yeah, I'm interested to hear. You can. He says you can. Wow, amazing. And yeah, if you're having problems with that, Alan, I wouldn't do it. This is part of the reason that I don't do it with Final Cut Pro, because I don't trust it. I'd much rather do it the slightly longer way around, where you're manually uploading it. You know, you've got more control basically over getting it up to YouTube. I guess that the challenge that you're probably running into is that you have 2 different accounts, 2 different YouTube accounts, YouTube Studio accounts, if you like. That's possibly the reason. I don't know. I think, yeah, I would stop doing it personally. I never rely on those automatic or those kind of API things that a lot of software a lot of production software where you can publish in theory directly to a platform. I just never trust it because I always think it's going to miss something out, or there'll be a step that you can't do that you can do if you just do it manually yourself. So that's just me. On Wednesday, was there a feeling just to quit YouTube? I think I said that earlier. I'd never quit YouTube because I love it. You'll have to force me out of the door, drag me out of the building to stop making YouTube videos. But I was really feeling down. And I remember sitting there eating those expensive, not brilliant tacos, which I feel like I have to keep mentioning. I won't mention the restaurant because that's not fair, but it was typical London overpriced food. But I remember sitting there and there was a couple behind me, or I think two girls behind me talking. They were just talking. I wasn't listening. I wasn't paying attention really, but it was clear they were just having a friend type chat. And I remember hearing them thinking, I can't remember the last time I've done that where it hasn't either been with my girlfriend, which I love doing, obviously, but I can't think of the last time me and my mates had a chat in the pub and we weren't talking about work and all that sort of stuff. Or when the mates that I have in this industry, I spend quite a lot of time with, but equally we just talk about YouTube. I remember just hearing these girls thinking, I've had this day where I feel like I've wasted all that time. I'd love just to be sat there with a beer talking to my mate about the football or cars or whatever. And that was the overriding feeling. I just had enough. And I think because it's been such a crazy time with tech releases, as it always is in September and October, I think it had just got to me, really. And I think because I had that team building thing later on, which was my own fault for going, even though it actually turned out to be a great thing to do, I was just piling all these things on my head, thinking, "Ugh," and I wanted to be at home as well. I miss my son. I miss my girlfriend. I particularly miss my son because he's 16 months old. And everything was just kind of getting on top of me, but I was fine. Again, it was one of those things where you sit there thinking, I bet I feel like this tomorrow morning as well. And then you wake up the next day and you feel a bit better and you crack on. And then you have this wonderful thing like I did where the review for this went off the charts. But again, it's that roller coaster. It's up and down. It really, really is up and down. Alan, hi, Alan. When is the Marks Solo Club weekend getaway in the Lake District? Does it include the long walk to the pub? So every February, I go to the Lake District with my brother-in-law and a bunch of other guys, and we do call it the long walk to the pub because it is basically that. We're there for 2 or 3 nights. We stay in a hut. It's not really a hut. It does have running water and power in Coniston, just outside of Coniston, if you're familiar with that area. And yeah, we go for long walks that end up at a pub. I love the idea of doing this as a solo club thing and inviting other people. I think that's a great idea. I don't know how many people would come. Maybe you'd be there, Alan, from the sounds of it. I do like the idea of doing live events and doing some kind of gathering with getting people into the same room. The challenge with that is, as you can see here, actually, the number of people that are from, where are we? Is that Argentina? One there, yeah, America. Basically, everyone is spread around quite widely. So I'd always feel like people are missing out if we couldn't do it. But one day, Alan, who knows? Who knows? Has Malcolm got a question? The more you mention the tacos, the more justifiable they are as an expense to HMRC. They were definitely that, Malcolm. They were definitely being expensed. Ben's here. So Ben will know exactly what I'm talking about. Ben, have you just come on, or did you hear my rubbish description of the life-size Monopoly event? Because Ben was there. So Ben, lover of tech, he knows exactly how I feel because I'm sure he won't mind me saying this, he turned up to the event on Wednesday as well, which was lovely. Nice to see a friendly face there. And he was knackered as well because he was working incredibly hard the night before on it was the Pixel 8 versus the Pixel 8 Pro versus the iPhone versus the S23 Ultra camera test, which is an hour long. He's made an hour-long camera test video, which has gone off the charts. It's really just gone into the stratosphere, quite rightly, because it's very in-depth, as always, with Ben's stuff. Go and check it out. Ben, if you want to put a link in the chat, please do. But yeah, he turned up and to this life-sized Monopoly thing, and he was very tired. And I knew I had the same thing coming because I knew he'd done his video, he'd done the hard work. I had the hard work still to come. So basically, Ben, I was saying that I don't particularly enjoy organized fun and the kind of team building stuff, but it turned out to be a great event and met lots of lovely people, and we had a bit of a laugh. So yeah, it was just the wrong week for it, really, just because of everything going on. But that wasn't the organizer's fault at all. It's just one of those things. Lots of random questions. This is exactly what I want. Jakob, what are your current plans with Instagram? What are my current plans with Instagram? That's a really good question. So at the moment, Instagram, in fact, all of the short form content that's going out for Mark Ellis Reviews and soon for this channel as well, isn't being done by me at all. It's all being done or managed by Niall, who's my general manager. And it's being edited either by Niall or by Richard, who's been doing the short form stuff and the 8 or 16 podcast edit for quite some time now. And Instagram at the moment, over the last month or so, funny enough, since Niall came on board, has been doing really well in terms of performance. So it's not going up again. It's not going off the charts, but we're getting 1,000, 2,000, 5, 8K views occasionally, and they're fairly consistent on the reels. And these are mostly chopped up YouTube videos. So it's basically you take the 8 to 10 minute video from YouTube and then chop it up into 5 or 6 different reels. And they've been working very well because Niall has been very strategic in terms of what he's picked out, the titles that he's used and the tags and all that sort of stuff. And we have recently put some original reels on there as well that aren't chopped up from bigger videos. So things like the Pixel 8 unboxing, that's been up there as a kind of dedicated reel. Today, I think we put up or tomorrow possibly, the Pixel Watch 2. So in terms of the plan at the moment, it's to carry on doing that. The ultimate plan with Instagram for both channels really, but certainly for Mark Ellis Reviews, is to have more dedicated original content, original short form content on Instagram, because it's that stuff that works. I've watched other people do this and they've done very well with it. So a really good example of this is a guy called Asbyt, ASBYT. Guy called Adam, lovely guy. Ben knows Adam as well. I've been watching him on Instagram, and he's really grown. I can't remember the numbers, but he has gone, yeah, stratospheric in terms of the growth. And the way he's done that, I think, is by making original short form video purely for Instagram, and it's worked brilliantly. He's done the kind of ASMR stuff, unboxing stuff, and just some dedicated. I think when the iPhone 15 series came out, again, I don't think he'll ever watch this, but hopefully if he does, it will correct me if I'm wrong. But I get the impression he focused more on creating the short form version of those unboxings and quick thoughts on those phones versus the YouTube videos, and it seems to have worked really well. So that's where we want to get to with this. The challenge with that at the moment is just time. And also the production process, because we're working, again, Ben will know about this, we're working to the wire with everything. So everything is like, okay, let's do the next video, get it shot, get it edited, sent out. We haven't got the space at the moment to think, let's make a few shorts first and then do the long form. And one of the reasons for that, this was Niall's idea, and I think it's a really, really good point, is that if you start with short form, so if you get a new product, let's say you get a new pair of headphones, a new pair of earbuds, like these Marshall earbuds, and you think, I'm not sure what to focus on when it comes to the video, the main review, why not start with a few shorts? So do a short on the sound, do one on the case, maybe one on the material that's used, and get those shorts out and just see which ones perform the best, which ones generate the most engagement. And then from that, you can start thinking about how to play the main long video. And I think that's a great idea. It's not foolproof, and if a short about the material gets 200,000 views, that doesn't mean that if you focus on that for your long form video, that's going to get 200,000 views. That's not really how this works. But you'll get a nice, you'll be able to gauge what people are interested in. So I love that idea, but again, it's just time. It's having the time to do that in that order. What we're going to try and do from kind of November, December onwards is start building those shorts in to begin with. So yeah, we'll see how it goes, but that's the plan. Ben says the MediaTek event. So MediaTek was the brand that put the thing on at the Monopoly Life Size event thing on. MediaTek are a massive, huge company, very much like Snapdragon. So they make a lot of the components that go into Android phones and various other things. Good people to know. Yeah, MediaTek event was really good, and yes, the other side was the pain in the backside of a week. It was just the whole thing. It's a privilege to get these devices early. Do not get me wrong, but there are some challenges when it comes to embargo dates, what we can and can't do before the embargo. What you may have seen is a lot of people doing this, a lot of reviewers doing this for a week, because that's all we could show you. So again, I don't make the decisions at Google. We do as we're told. We want to keep getting these devices because it's in everyone's interest. If we get these devices early, we can get the reviews out on time. You can make your buying decisions. Google gets lots of coverage all at once, which is really important for the brand. But yeah, it's just a very intense week. And I just wish it was a little bit easier. Just a little bit easier. Justin, which football team do you support? So interestingly, I've never supported a top tier team ever. I very nearly, and some people may drop off it when I say this, for some reason, when I was about 12, 13, I very nearly thought about, in fact, I genuinely quite seriously considered supporting Arsenal. No idea why. I just thought I quite like Arsenal. How many people are going to drop off now? Let's see. Anyone gone? No, great. No Spurs fans possibly. So yeah, but that didn't happen. I'm a Northampton Town supporter, so I'm from Northampton. So the Cobblers, as they're known, because Northampton is only really famous for Joe Wiley and shoes. Yeah, the Cobblers are my team, and I was a season ticket holder at Northampton Town for years and years and years, from about the age of 15 or so to my mid-20s, and then kind of fell out of love with it, I think, and work got very busy then, and I didn't renew my season ticket, and that was it. I very rarely went back. We occasionally do away days with me and my mates, which I love, but it's a slog supporting Northampton Town. Trust me, we're one of those mid-table teams. I think we still hold the record for going from the bottom division to the top and down again in consecutive seasons, the quickest. One hell of a little record there, but I like that question. That's the first time anyone's asked me that on here. Mark Gilroy, another fellow YouTuber. So you're just working on a new collab. They're happy with my fee, but have asked about licensing the finished video. I'm thinking this should be a subject to a different let me start again. I'm thinking this should be subject to a different contract/fee. What would you do? If they're talking about licensing, it has to be in the contract, Mark, definitely. So a lot of brands and PR companies are very sneaky with this. They'll kind of lure you in by saying, yeah, we accept your rate, fantastic. And you think, great, they're going to pay the money I want. Then they put a contract together. They send the contract across, and then somewhere in there it says, basically in more legal terminology, it will say something like, we're going to use your content for our own purposes for the rest of your life. In fact, for the rest of eternity. If they want to do that, that should come at a cost, and it should come at quite a significant cost, because when you think about it, it's all your two things. It's all of your hard work, and it's your IP. And the third thing is that with them using your stuff, they're not having to spend money on having that stuff made themselves. So you imagine the production costs of getting them to, film a video about the product that you've reviewed. Very big, much bigger than paying a YouTuber to license their content. So I would absolutely make sure that's in the contract. Not really a different contract. I would just add it into the contract that you have with them, and be very forthright about it, and put in a big fee. Basically, add a fee that almost feels too expensive, because as always, you can go down, but you can't go up, and it's very important, I think, as a community of content creators, that that all boats are raised at the same time, because the more we all up our rates, the more valuable we are. The more our inherent value as creators is raised, and it should be. And this is very, very important stuff, because, like I say, a lot of brands and PR companies will try and get away with not paying for content licensing, and it's your stuff. So absolutely, Mark, build it into the contract and really up that fee just to account for it. No, Justin, that's your. So, Justin, are you from Northampton? If you are, I think you may be the first person ever to tune into this live stream from Northampton, which is the best thing ever. And if you are from Northampton, we're probably going to very quickly talk about Northampton things. What was so bad about the tacos? What was so bad? They weren't terrible. They were just, what were they? They were just they were underwhelming. They were about 15 quid, and I had some chips and a salad, and together it was about 25 quid with a drink. And the tacos were about that big. Not very big at all. And I was miserable that day. Maybe they were lovely. Maybe I'm being utterly unfair, which is partly why I'm not mentioning the restaurant, because it's not fair. Thank you. They want it for 12 months. I'll add a big number to it too. A rising tide lifts all ships. That's the phrase I was trying to think of that I couldn't think of. Yeah, go for it. I mean, 12 months isn't too bad, actually, Mark. That's not too bad. To give you an idea with this, I'm happy to mention the number. I'm not mentioning the brand, trust me. To give you an idea of this, I recently agreed to content licensing for just a very short clip of footage. Can I definitely say this? I can. I can. I'm not mentioning the brand. A very short clip of footage for something, which was $5,000, and that was for 2 years of licensing. And for me, that worked out basically. So I don't know if that helps. That might be useful. Again, no one knows if that's a good price or a bad price, because there's no rule book for this. There's no Bible anywhere. So go with your gut feeling, but just nudge the price up as much as you can. Justin, I want to know, you haven't replied yet. I want to know if you're from Northampton. You must be. If you support, why else would you support Northampton Town unless you were from Northampton Town? I'm looking, Johan. I'd be up for a trip that involves a pub and a short walk. Well, we could. This is going back to the idea of having a Mark Ellis or a solo club get together in the Lake District where we go for a walk that ends in a pub. It doesn't have to be a long walk. You don't have to scale a mountain and end up in a pub. You could just walk for 10 minutes down the road and find a lovely pub. I completely agree with that. So yeah, maybe that's an option as well, Johan. Glad to be of help, Mark. Let us know how it goes. I hope you get the deal. Oh, I will give Malcolm a little bit of a bit of promotion here. So Malcolm is a writer basically, and he does work for Apple Insider as well, or a weekend guy, as he says. I didn't want to say what you did, Malcolm, because I didn't want to get your position wrong and all that sort of stuff, and your relationship with Apple Insider wrong. I did some work with Apple Insider ages ago, as Malcolm knows. We kind of parted ways amicably after a while because it was just difficult to do both things at once. But lovely team, really enjoyed doing it. So again, this is on content licensing. If they view your stuff as good enough to buy, lowballing it probably makes it seem like a bargain or less charitably cheap. At the risk of sounding like a self-affirmation tape, you're worth it. You are. It's one of the hardest things to get your head around in this game because you are worth it, and we all are. We all work very hard and create stuff that means something. And whenever you create something, it's your thing, and no one else has made it, and you own it. So it's important that it's valued appropriately for that. But equally, and this might be partly a British thing, I don't know, valuing yourself highly is tricky. It makes you feel a little bit uncomfortable. It certainly has for me my entire solo working life. So when I left my main job back in 2015 and went solo to do my own thing, one of the hardest things I found was valuing my time. And after a few years, it became very clear that the most expensive thing I could offer was my time. It wasn't a product, it wasn't a service, it was the time that I was investing from myself into those things. And yeah, it requires a real switch in your brain to be flicked to realize that that is very expensive. Your time, no matter who you are, where you've come from, what you do, your skill level, whatever it is, if you've got something that you can do that can add value for something else, for another business, for another person, it's expensive. It should come at a big cost. And you'd have to be really, really kind of forthright with that and very confident with that as well. I see you like super dry. I like your dress style. I'm not wearing super dry today, funny enough. I mean, I wear super dry a lot in a lot of my videos. Although I've done it less so recently because those t-shirts are getting a little bit old. I need to renew my super dry wardrobe actually. But they make great t-shirts. We talk about all sorts of strange things on this live stream, don't we? We're now talking about t-shirts. We've talked about Northampton Town, tacos, and now super dry t-shirts. But super dry gets my vote because they're just quality. It's quality gear. They last a long time. Any other questions? What have I missed? Any questions here? Let's have a look. The Lake District has come up quite a bit, isn't it, as well? I'll be there for the 30th anniversary walk with my friends in Buttermere is lovely. Lovely. It's a lovely name as well, isn't it? Buttermere. And Buttermere is as lovely as it sounds. We hire the whole of the Buttermere Youth Hostel, I'm guessing that is. Wow, I'm very jealous, Alan. That'd be amazing. 30 years. Amazing. I'm just looking through here to see if I missed any questions. Alan, what's this one here? I feel for you. My hardest video to make has the least views and the easiest one has the most views. Even though the most is only 1,100 shows, even though the most is only 1,100 shows, you just never know. That's still 1,100 people, Alan. Imagine 1,100 people in a room. It's a colossal number of people watching your stuff. Love your openness and honesty. Probably too open sometimes. Yeah, that's such a good point. And again, people like Ben will know about this, and Malcolm as well. If you put a lot of work into something, sometimes it pays off. And I know it paid off for Ben with his video this week. It paid off for me with my video this week. But there's probably been more times in the past where I've put an awful lot of effort into a video and it just hasn't performed to what I wanted it to. And conversely, like Alan says, I've perhaps pulled a video out of where, and it's done incredibly well. And I've still never quite worked out how to capitalize on that because I don't want to keep pulling videos out of somewhere to make the channel grow. That's not, for me, that feels like you're cheating a bit. It doesn't feel like I'm putting myself out there and I'm not stretching myself if I'm doing that. So I suppose the answer to it really is a mix of the stuff that's easy to make and may do well, and the stuff that's harder to make And there's a much bigger risk because you're putting all that effort in and there's no guarantee it's going to work. Again, that's a very classic thing about being a YouTuber. I love it because it's the roller coaster. It's a little bit like, I'm not a gambler, but it's like gambling really. You get big wins and smaller wins. Yeah, it's such a good point, Alan, and you're clearly experiencing that yourself. Are you looking forward to the Apple event next week? David, don't do this to me. Have they announced something? Because that wasn't the case a moment ago. Have they announced something while I've been on this live stream? Is there an Apple event next week? Malcolm, come on, chime in. Let's have a look. I'm hoping there's not. Is there? I don't think there is. I'm panicking now. There's not an Apple event, is there? Someone please reply. David, have you seen? Is there news about an Apple event? Wasn't aware. There's rumors about a potential iPad release, which I wasn't expecting. It looks like there is. From what you guys are saying, I need someone to confirm this. We need confirmation. They wouldn't announce on a Sunday. Guys, is it? What am I missing here? Has there been an official announcement from Apple? And current bets are... so there's been nothing yet then. I'm panicking now, guys, you can probably tell. So Malcolm's the guy to answer this, I think, really. Malcolm, has there been an official announcement from Apple today? I can't find anything that there's going to be an event next week. Yes or no? I'm going for no. I'll wait for Malcolm to reply to that. Jakob, how many people likely just unveiling rather than a full event? Yeah, it's going to be press release stuff. I mean, if that's the case, it is new products potentially to talk about, which again, more work, but good for the channel. Jakob, back to your question. How many people are involved right now in Mark Ellis Reviews / Solo Club? So the business is now, it's been rebranded. It was originally called Business Fiction Limited. That was the name of the business that sits above all this, which has been my company from 2015. I renamed that to Mark Ellis Media Limited a couple of months ago. So that's the kind of holding company for all this stuff. So in terms of that business, there is, how many people have we got? I'm going to have to count in my head now. Bear with me. There's about 7 of us, but they're not. There's only two out of that 7 who are employed. So one of them is me. Obviously, I'm employed by the business. The other one is Jen, my girlfriend, who's my second employee. But everyone else is contracted. So Niall, Richard, Max, and various other people that do things. They're all contracted just to keep things simple, really. It works very well for them, works very well for me. But yeah, it's about 7, maybe 8 people, possibly, doing various degrees of stuff. Niall has the biggest job. Jen's is very important. Obviously, she does lots of very important things behind the scenes. But Niall's is day to day. He's doing a lot of the production stuff and the management, given his title. So yeah, it's exciting. It's nerve-wracking when you start bringing more people in. The costs go up, obviously, and there's a bit more responsibility. But I'm feeling the benefits of it already. So I am getting time back, and a lot of stuff is happening without me thinking about it. And the really cool thing about it, actually, is that, sorry, Malcolm's just confirmed there's been no official thing. Phew, good. The really cool thing about kind of expanding the team is that it starts to feel like a real business, which again sounds odd because it is. It's been a real business since it started. But when you start bringing other people in and they start talking amongst themselves, and you see email conversations between someone and someone else that you're not really involved in but relates to the business, it's really satisfying because it feels like this big moving object that's growing and doing stuff without you having to have your fingers in all the pies. So I'm enjoying it, but again, it can be. Yeah, it's another level of stress, but a good level of stress, really. And I am getting time back, which was the entire point of doing that. Malcolm, you've made me feel better. So far, no official word of an event, nada, nothing. Even check the work Slack, no mention either. Yeah, I'm still very doubtful we'll see anything else from Apple this year. I don't think we will. If we do, I think, like you say, it's going to be press release stuff, and it will probably be new iPads, maybe. A new iPad mini would be amazing, selfishly for my channel, but also for people that want one at the moment. Hello, Juice. How do you keep your creativity up? Do you seek out inspiration to help you with your creativity? Thank you. Do I seek out inspiration to help you? Depends what you mean by that, really. I, I think when it comes to inspiration, I just watch other YouTubers. I watch YouTube videos quite a lot, not quite as much as I used to. I think I've mentioned this recently that I need to do as I say, really, and invest more time watching YouTube because I've been so busy. I've taken my eye off the ball a little bit. I want to get back into it because I genuinely love watching it. I think that's probably where I get most of my inspiration from. Most of the inspiration for the way that I shoot videos, the way that I write them, my to a degree my presentation style, although that is just me, really. But really, just the inspiration to keep going and keep doing this stuff. I get that from other people who are much further ahead than me. So yeah, that's kind of how I keep it up. I've always been a very creative person. I think as a kid, I was always very creative. My parents always say I was always building stuff and doing things, and I've always been fascinated by how things work and how when you take things apart, what's inside them, and then how do you build them again? How do you make your own version of that thing? For me, that has always been a big source of inspiration, and I also love audio and video. I love the gear that's involved. I love the editing. I love it when it all comes together and looks and sounds good, which is ironic given the topic of this video earlier on. But normally, when it all looks and sounds great, that really that gets me going. That gets my juices flowing here all week. Niall is on. Niall. So I keep mentioning Niall. I know he's occasionally in the background watching and listening, but Niall he's my general manager. I've been talking about you again, Niall, but it's been nice things. I promise. It's all good stuff as always. Any other questions, guys? I was so nervous then about the possibility of an Apple event next week. I was about to panic. I was about to turn off the camera and go and say goodbye and do something about it. But no, from the sounds of it, at the moment, there's no Apple event next week. If there's murmurings about this, it suggests that something's happening, possibly. But I agree with Malcolm. I think it's going to be a press release type thing. Right, we've got another 4 minutes ish before I have to go and get on with my weekend and see the family. So any last questions, guys? Mark Gurman has been busy talking about things. He's always busy talking about things. But yeah, I've noticed a few things that he said recently where you think maybe there's something he knows that we don't, which is kind of his job, I suppose. Any other questions that I've missed? I'm just having a quick look. This is interesting. Aidan, I guess the saying "you're only as good as your last video" doesn't really hold up anymore. It depends what you mean by that. It's a weird one with YouTube. So I don't think you are only as good as your last video, because when you're creating a YouTube channel or a YouTube brand, you're building a library of content. So you're creating things every week or every month, whatever your cadence is for videos, and you're adding to this great big, like I say, library of content on your channel, which never, unless you delete it, it stays there forever. And what you do find is occasionally old videos come out of the woodworks. I still get people commenting on videos that I made 3 years ago, really terrible videos, which I wish weren't there anymore. But they still seem to get value out of it. And when you look at some of the numbers, it's worth doing this actually. If you've got a channel that is a good few years old, if you go back and look at some of the numbers, you'll be amazed by which videos have really, really been contributing to your monthly, your ongoing monthly views. It'll be things that you've completely forgotten about, because for whatever reason that topic has come back into the national conscience. There's been an event or a piece of news or a product update that has placed the focus on that thing that you did originally. So I think, I don't think you're as good as your last video, because again, you could put 3 videos out in a week. The first one could do terribly, the next one could do fantastically, and the third one could just be kind of middle of the road. But that doesn't mean that you're a middle of the road creator. It means you're building a body of work, and I guess that's one of the really nice things about YouTube. Richard, do I use SetApp? I don't anymore. No, I've not worked with SetApp for ages, those guys. But it is a fantastic service. Again, not sponsored by them, obviously. But or I have been in the past, but not now. But it's a very good service. It's very cost effective if you've got if there's a bunch of apps that you need and they appear to be in SetApp, and they are in SetApp, it's probably more cost effective to go with SetApp than it is to get in each individual app, which is the whole point of it, really. So yeah, in terms of your second question, I think it's worth the money, providing you have enough apps to get out of it to make it worth the money, if that makes sense. Niall says he's got 8 tabs open and 3 videos trying to look into the Apple stuff. I can't remember who said that there might have been an Apple thing next week, but you've panicked everyone. I'm joking. I was about to do the same thing, Niall. In fact, I was trying to open lots of tabs at the same time. We've got loads of people tuning in. This is great, even though we're getting towards the end of the live stream. Thank you so much, guys, for coming on. I really appreciate it. I've just seen another question here from James. Some of these, I'll let you off, but some of these aren't technically Solo Club questions. They're more Mark Ellis Reviews questions, but it's Friday. Who cares? So James says, any desire to review more home cinema tech? Will you review the Apple Vision Pro when released, despite the price? So first question, home cinema tech. Yes, and funnily enough, there will be a video about a very cool piece of cinema tech. I'm not sure when it's going to be. Niall knows what I'm referring to. Within the next few weeks, basically. So that is definitely going to be the case. And I'm going to be building a little bit of a, not building, but arranging a bit of a home cinema, not home cinema, but a kind of, what am I trying to say? A living room type setup thing over there in the studio. That's a bit of a project over the next couple of weeks. And the reason for that is I want to do more home stuff, whether it be audio or video type things. And on that note, going to your second question, the Apple Vision Pro, which is released next year. We don't know when. It's going to be early 2024, apparently, according to Apple. Yes, absolutely. The challenge with this, and it's going to be quite an interesting one, is that we don't know when it's coming to the UK. So we know that as I say, we know that it's coming to the US early next year, but even that hasn't been given a date. But the UK and other countries, no idea. It could be later next year. It could be 2025. It may never come. Who knows? It probably will. My idea with this, and I do need to flesh this out a little bit, is that I will probably go to America to get one and do a thing around it, build a story around me going to America to get a Vision Pro, or to go to someone's place or whatever, or business or something, and try it and give it a try. But I do quite like the idea of going out there, buying one and bringing it back. An incredibly expensive video to make. But given everything that Apple is putting into this and what they're saying about Vision Pro and Vision OS being the next era of computing, then in theory it's worth doing. And again, that comes back to the whole premise of this video, really neatly, which is it's a risk, but it's a calculated risk, and one which I think is worth making. So, but that's going to be a really expensive video. I'm wincing already thinking about it. Alan, should you hold off buying a camera before the Academy in January? Nearly bought a Canon R50 on Prime Day. No, don't hold off, Alan. If you're joining the Academy, I mean, we'll talk a little bit about gear and stuff, but it's not really going to be the focus of the Academy because, as I've said before, it doesn't really matter what you use to film yourself with, whether you're using a camera like this, or if you're using one of these, or if you're using an action cam, whatever it is, as long as you can film yourself and you can hear yourself, that's enough. So if you've seen a camera that you want and you've got the money for it, go for it. Absolutely. Don't wait. James, have you noticed an increase in video views when you spend more money making them? No, not at all. A really good example of this is the Porsche Taycan review that I did back in October last year. That's probably been the most costly video to make. And the reason for that is that two reasons. One was just my time. It took a lot of my time over 2 days. Secondly, and probably the bigger cost really was the B-roll. So I didn't shoot the B-roll for that. It was all done by a company called Pulse 8, who are based down in the south. Lovely guys, good friends as well. But I brought them in to do the B-roll because I had 2 days. I had the first day to do the A-roll stuff, and then the second day to do the B-roll. But I didn't want to do the B-roll myself because you can't really do that if you're doing a car review. So they were doing drone stuff and some really nice, nice smooth cinematic stuff for me as well. But they needed paying, obviously. So that added to the cost of it. I think to date that video has done probably 10,000 views or something, but it was a very slow video. It was probably an 8 out of 10 when it went live. Cost me a lot of money, but the reason I did it was it was more of a portfolio piece. So it was look, here's what I can do with car reviews. The only downside of that, I can't remember who I was talking to about this, but they were telling me that this was someone who's done quite a few car reviews. I genuinely can't think who it was. It wasn't Ben. I know Ben does a lot of this stuff, but it was someone else. He was telling me that the problem with putting more money into certain videos, particularly car videos, is that you set a standard. So the standard of production on that Porsche video is probably the highest out of all the videos that I've made. I think I'm really happy with the edit as well. I did the edit. That's again why it was so expensive to make. But I'm proud of that video. It looks great. But if I do another car video, you think people might expect that same level of quality and production, and I'm not sure I want to do that again because it's too expensive. So you do set a bit of a like I say, a level to keep aiming for when you do that. So be very careful how much money you plow into these things because, yeah, you won't make the money back quite often, or most of the time, really. Probably stressed a lot about where to charge the Taycan as well on the way back to Reading. I did, David. Yeah. I very for people who aren't aware of the story, I very nearly ran out of electricity. I can't say the word on the way back to Reading. Reading is where Porsche HQ is, and yeah, on that second day of filming, absolutely knackered driving back to Reading HQ, and I had like 3% battery remaining. Thought I could make it, and very, very nearly didn't. I had to find a supercharger, but I could see myself having to make the most embarrassing phone call of my career to Porsche, saying, "I've run out of juice, and I'm 10 miles down the road. Can you come and get me, please?" But thankfully, I didn't have to do that. Guys, I think we're there. This has been, I think, one of the best attended Solo Club live streams. So thank you so much for coming on. It's your Friday. I'm always amazed when people come on. And the questions, as I said at the start of this, really make these live streams. I hope I haven't missed any. There's lots of stuff in here. I'm having one last look. I don't think I have. Apologies if I did. There's just lots of stuff in this chat. But yeah, thank you to everyone for tuning in. It's been great. It's been a very busy week. My voice, I can feel, is starting to go. So I am going to sign off now. But yeah, thanks for jumping on. I'm going to keep, I know I kept talking about moving the timing for these live streams, but I think I'm going to keep it as it is because the numbers seem to be growing a little bit. So 4 p.m. UK time on Fridays, normally, that's where I'll be. And yeah, if you get a chance to join me next week, please do. And in the meantime, guys, have a fantastic weekend. I'm going to do that thing where I end the stream and walk around there and then come back round and hope it's ended. One day I'm going to come back round and you're still going to be there. I know it's going to happen one day, sooner rather than later. But anyway, I'm going to stop rambling. Have a great weekend and I'll catch you next week. Cheers, guys.